Here at PowerStar Japan, we're celebrating Games of 2023. I know what you're saying, it's 2024, you losers. But in actuality, in order to play every single game of 2023, you'd have to wait for 2023 to be over, right? That's exactly what we did, and in line with the old magazines and gaming sites that you used to love, we're going to announce our Game of the Year of 2023 in February of 2024. So sit back and relax as we release a new video every day, all culminating in the final Game of the Year of 2023. If it weren't for Tears of the Kingdom, I would say that Street Fighter 6 would be my game of 2023. However, it still qualifies as our fighting game here at PowerStar Japan. SF6 is a return to form in flying colors. This is quite possibly the most polished game of 2023 and brings Street Fighter back to the top of the fighting game pantheon. With a fantastic mix of some new characters and the old classics, they managed to keep the spirit alive by bringing in new fire. SF6 introduces new mechanics into the fray. We have a drive impact and a drive rush, managed now by the drive gauge meter. What a lot of people are gambling on is that this new drive impact and drive rush system would be controversial or cheap, but in actuality, they elevate the gameplay without complicating it. Harkening back to the best days of the arcade, Street Fighter 6 is a graphical powerhouse that runs like greased lightning. I've never played a fighting game so fine-tuned, so well balanced. There's an answer to almost any cheap tactic. All you have to do is put in the time. It's worth mentioning that the netcode is unreal, pending that you do have a good internet connection. I've logged in almost 20 hours alone in the Battle Hub. What is the Battle Hub? It's this online arcade lobby system that just somehow feels like a natural extension to the game. Street Fighter 6 is a game that made me smile the most in 2023, and that's why it's our fighting game of 2023.
Now we come to what could be the greatest two-horse race in the history of the number 2. We were split down the middle for best RPG between Octopath Traveler 2 and Sea of Stars. Octopath 2 did improve upon its predecessor story, making its core hook more cohesive and mechanics more polished. Not only that, the game presents a best waifu candidate with Throne, the cool, calm and collected thief. While Octopath is definitely in the top 2 RPGs of 2023, we decided to give the title just to Sea of Stars. The reasons it won out were the slightly faster pacing of both story and encounters, having absolutely no grinding necessary and greater variability of the break mechanic. Sea of Stars does a great job of leaving you wanting more, while Octopath is a mammoth story that leaves you satisfied but stuffed. SOS has more fleshed out side content too, complete with multiple time-wasting minigames. It also wins the best in-game replacement of a disgraced YouTuber award, so you can't argue with that. For a more definitive review, check it out here at PSJ, and you'll see more reasons why Sea of Stars is our best RPG of 2023.
We know what you're all thinking. Ugh, COD. Yeah, that's right, COD, baby. Hear us out. Call of Duty is an established franchise, and while there have been hits and misses here and there, one thing Modern Warfare 3 does is come in with an extremely polished and solid multiplayer experience. It seems as if Call of Duty is shifting towards the Fortnite model of having a general hub for games and modes. Opinions on that aside, what the team has done here with the carryover functionality from Modern Warfare 2 is just spectacular. No longer do you have to worry about the upgrades, purchases starting all over, and this and that. Instead, what you get is essentially picking up where you left off, and dare I say, you get an even more polished experience than the previous entry. Returning maps from 2009's Modern Warfare 2 reintroduce that classic fast-paced Call of Duty multiplayer style, but if you get tired of those, you can switch on over to Warzone or DMZ for those huge maps. Yes, it's a cliche line, but there's something here for everyone, and the endless customization options and plethora of game modes will keep you coming back for more and more. Suit up, soldier.
Spider-Man 2 may not have won the Game of the Year award at the Game Awards, but that doesn't disqualify it from being a great next-gen game. In this spectacular sequel, you're able to play as both Peter and Miles, being able to switch between them almost simultaneously, with the PS5 being able to handle that, as well as the Sandman section in the beginning. And even though it might be a tired example at this point, that doesn't mean it's not a good one. The gameplay is certainly streamlined from the previous two games, but that may or may not be a bad thing depending on who you ask. With the newly added Venom symbiote abilities for Peter and electrical venom powers for Miles, making for more dynamic gameplay action. Not to mention the wingsuit ability really expanding and improving upon the web swinging mechanic from the previous two games. Then on top of that, you're able to explore both the regions of Queens and Brooklyn, being 2 times the explorable size from the previous games, leaving plenty of playable map to explore and extra details to see in New York City. In the hypothetical scenario that you just want to get from point A to point B, you could just easily fast travel all the way to the other side within a few seconds should you choose to, which definitely wasn't manageable for the previous 2 Spider-Man games. While there might have been compromises in some cases, be it the reduced number of NPCs walking around, it was most likely done in order to improve the overall visual quality and performance of the game. It's a really solid game, and it's great being able to move around with more options for traversal than the previous 2 games. Despite how you feel about Spider-Man 2 overall, you can't deny that this is a game that really shows off the capabilities of the current gen consoles and their improvements over the previous gen.
And the award for Best Graphics goes to Metroid Prime Remastered. Calling it a remaster is not really fair. This is more or less a remake. Every single aspect about this game has been remade. The lighting engine, the textures, the models. This is a visual feast on the Nintendo Switch, a piece of hardware that in all honesty 6 years ago was out of date. In our opinion, Best Graphics goes to a title that has outstanding visual design, a unique artistic identity, helps with immersion, and it also is a huge plus if it can run smoothly at a reasonable frame rate. Metroid Prime Remaster stood tall among titles like Spider-Man 2 and Alan Wake 2 and that new Avatar game. With an unmatched visual design language, we won't spoil it, but that opening menu has yet to be replicated since the original. Yes, people may fault this for being a remake, remaster, what have you, but the almost 2-decade-old game, the world design, the atmosphere, it still holds up, and it is marvelous. This is a game that has changed our opinion on what the Nintendo Switch was truly capable of. It manages to respect the art style while still elevating it to a height never before imagined. Metroid Prime Remastered, it's a stellar game from start to finish.
For this next one, notice how we didn't split this category into best sim and strategy? No, our pick for best strategy game is Advance Wars Reboot Camp. It's a top-down tactics game featuring soldiers, tanks, planes and boats. The primary reason we picked it is that it gets straight to the point. You go on missions, either wiping out every enemy in sight, or being more diplomatic, aka cowardly, and capture their HQ. Every unit has strengths and weaknesses, as well as every CO, so there are numerous stratagems to choose from, depending on your warmongering preferences. I personally would give it an honourable mention for best remake, as it stays completely faithful to the original, while adding a punchy modern design, colour palette and new features. It even offers a potential best waifu in Sammy, the most dependable infantry specialist around. Rather than having unsolvable and complicated conflicts in real life, let's all wage war in Advance Wars instead.
Hi-Fi Rush may have released in the beginning of 2023, but it was definitely a surprise hit that left an impact for the rest of the year. Yes, that's in regards to both the rhythm-oriented gameplay and that this game released for Microsoft platforms, having limited, if any, advertisement, but still managed to get the praise it deserves. Normally it's quite the risk, but thankfully the game was able to speak for itself. The cartoonish art direction also really helps with the charm and really has a lot of style, with main protagonist Chai's rocker personality and music player helping to influence the gameplay with the small yet effective details. This is seen with the machinery and platforms having a set beat pattern, or even something small like Chai stomping his feet or snapping his fingers when you're idle. Heck, even the life bar has a rhythm of its own. All these details really show the effort by the developers to create this music-inspired game and how there could be music even in the mundane. There's also a helpful toggleable meter that can appear at the bottom of the screen that measures the beats that are most effective to time jumps and attacks to, which help make for a better score by the end of each level. As music is a main aspect of the game, there are songs by familiar artists such as 9 Inch Nails the Band, The Black Keys, The Prodigy, and a few others. Hold on to your music players, there's also a streamer mode for this game that includes Hi-Fi Rush original songs that make for just as an enjoyable experience. There aren't too many songs in the game, and because it's not too long of a game, that just makes each track pack more of a punch, and they still don't manage to overstay their welcome. This game really is a rush to play, and was definitely a great way to kick off 2023 for gaming.
There were lots of games that had fantastic soundtracks this year, but you'll be hard-pressed to find something as catchy, moving, and so well crafted as the music found in Super Mario RPG. Legendary composer Yoko Shimomura returned, having composed the original Super Nintendo title in 1996. At that time, she was still in her early stages of composing, so to have her come back after putting out so many legendary tracks throughout the years is nothing short of a treat. Each of the tracks she originally created are lovingly redone, adding a bigger scope and scale music-wise, which in turn accentuates everything else in the game, be it moments of dialogue or battles. More instruments doesn't always equate to a better sound, but that's clearly not the case here, and classics like Beware the Forest's Mushrooms sound more lively than ever. The soundtrack to the game already sounded great in 1996, but it truly feels like it's ascended to the next level in 2023.
Back in 2023, at the annual Hideo Kojima Awards, the Video Game Awards, we had a lot of prominent games awarded on the sidelines. Unfortunately, the award for Best Action Game was among them, Armored Core 6. From Software was the darling of the media for Elden Ring, the Dark Souls series, and even Demon Souls. But the same level of love hasn't been given to Armored Core 6. Elden Ring's criticisms may lay in its lack of direction and handholding, oftentimes creating obscure gameplay mechanics that are more focused on community communication, quite the contrary to Armored Core 6. Elden Ring is also hard for completely different reasons than a game like, let's say, Ninja Gaiden, and such is the case with Armored Core 6. It's a hard game for something we haven't seen much in games in the last decade. Armored Core is about building the perfect mech for the mission. The breadth of situations demands an understanding of your mech, to customize each battle and mission appropriately. The bevy of options, the indicators of your health, threats, resources, really makes you feel like an augmented human. Piloting this machine is surreal. Every beep, HUD element, indicator has been meticulously planned to give you the most situational awareness. The overload of information seems to replicate what it feels to be a bridge between humanity and machine. The set pieces in this game are a sight to behold, and a stark reminder that open world games can't hold a candle to single set piece bespoke missions. The music and atmosphere of Armored Core 6 is a different breath of post-apocalypse cyber futurism. It's utterly shocking to see the best open world designers craft a mission-based, bespoke single-player experience in such a perfect manner. This game, more than any other, will have you grappling with what makes a good action game. It's utterly memorable, intense, and manages to have some of the most fantastic set-piece moments of any game of 2023. Armored Core 6 is an action mech game for the ages. It brings sophisticated planning in its fold to deliver action sequences most studios could never achieve. Armored Core 6 is our action mech game of 2023.
And the best action game of the year goes to Final Fantasy XVI. Now, Final Fantasy is mostly known as being part of the turn-based RPG genre. However, Final Fantasy XVI sought to continue a shift towards action, much like its predecessor, making it more akin to the spin-off series, Kingdom Hearts. Sure, there's something about strategically taking the time with each character in the party to decide your actions, but that shouldn't be a knock against the action formula that other games use, and one that Final Fantasy XVI fully embraces. There's something equally strategic as the on-the-fly action and reaction to enemy attacks that this combat system is able to provide. Not to mention how cool it is being able to shoot fireballs, as well as use the other icon abilities, as they're dubbed in this game, at your disposal. With icon abilities in this game essentially taking the place of summons. While it may be a divisive decision not to use turn-based elements, or that the series is shifting away from the turn-based formula, especially since Final Fantasy XVI is the most action-oriented mainline Final Fantasy installment. But who knows, it could be nice if Square was able to find a nice compromise in some other way. But for Final Fantasy XVI, it's nice being able to freely use Clive's icon abilities, and it just works. So in this case, I'm fine with the action-based combat for this game, and for that, it effortlessly takes the award for the best action game of 2023. This game is so action-packed that it was reported to have caused PS5s to overheat. Need I say more?
2023 was a solid year for remakes. We got some really good ones and it opened up a lot of questions. What defines a remake? What's a remaster? Mario RPG managed to bring back the fun and quirkiness of 90s Mario into the modern day. Ark Survival Ascended took a massive adventure where you can do just about anything and managed to make it even better. But for us, it just had to be Resident Evil 4. While some may argue that this game lacks the soul of the original, we vehemently disagree. While the original game remains a timeless classic, Resident Evil 4 Remake brings improvements in the obvious areas like graphics and controls, to the more subtle like storytelling and characterization. We'll be hard-pressed to find people who like the old Ashley or even Luis more than the new ones. Sure, Krauser seems a bit more off his rail, but doesn't it fit in line with the character? And it seems like, hopefully, Capcom has learned their lesson with remaking games because this game has plenty of bang for your buck with a meaty single-player story mode and one of the best DLC releases of all time. And who could forget the Mercenaries? Recently, I've personally said that if you're a total beginner coming into the franchise, Resident Evil 2 Remake would be the place to start. I still think that title is fantastic, but RE4 has now taken over that mantle. It's an essential title for any gamer, and it's our best remake of the year.
We're heading into mystical and obscure territory now. Next up is the best game no one talked about, and it's Hogwarts Legacy. What we mean by this is despite the controversy it garnered before release, a short while after release it fell off the planet. I suppose that's good for the wizarding world. Hogwarts does need to be kept secret from us muggles. And another thing, someone tell Sebastian he keeps breaking the first rule of Secret Wizard Fight Club. The fact remains that despite its cries for a boycott, Hogwarts Legacy won the award for most streamed game ever. And that's not just a category I made up 2 seconds ago. As of this moment that I'm recording myself, it's factually true. Watching Chad Thistlebro's adventures and playing through it myself as Ponzi Binkelson, you can see why. Excuse me while I cast Cliché-S Maximus, but Legacy manages to perfectly capture the magic that is J.K. Rowling's Hogwarts world, including all its cozy charm, intriguing mystery, and exciting whimsy. Everyone gets to live out their fantasy, playing wizards and witches that all exclusively sound like Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson. So in closing, my advice to you is rather than boycott decent games, instead try them, see what you think, and boycott large groups of people telling you to boycott things. Hogwarts Legacy is a spell-filled fun ride that you don't want to miss, lest you end up in the bitter, cold, muggle-filled world of the internet.
2D Mario games were in a bit of a weird place for a while. Not saying that the new Super Mario games were bad, they were all very solid titles that played well from beginning to end, but there was a bit of staleness starting to settle in. Had Nintendo put out a new Super Mario Bros. On Switch, it might have been successful, but it could have soured opinions for the worst. At the same time, it also feels like Super Mario Maker and its sequel were peak new Super Mario. Honestly, where on earth could they go from here? With Mario Wonder, the team at Nintendo was definitely reading the room and decided to make the most unlikely Mario game possibly ever. Yes, the frame is the same, you go from A to B, but just about everything else has changed. From the big picture to the small details, everything feels new, everything feels different, and maybe most importantly, everything feels fresh.
There are updates to every aspect of the game, from the minuscule pitter-patter of Mario's steps to how each power-up and warp pipe sounds. Seriously, this is a massive overhaul. The graphics engine, the art style, the design of the Flower Kingdom itself. And let's not get into the Wonder Flowers, something that seemed so gimmicky during the previews. Turns out, it's the defining charm of the game. Mario Wonder is the bridge between old 2D Mario and the 3D games. It's the biggest franchise shakeup that actually does right by its audience. We can look at the defining moments in the Mario timeline, and there are clear moments of change and innovation. Super Mario Wonder is the next turning point, and we can't wait to see what comes next from 2D Mario, or how this influences the 3D games.
When Breath of the Wild launched for the Switch in 2017, it was a huge shakeup for the Legend of Zelda series. Rather than constricting the player to a linear format, Nintendo constructs this fleshed out world of Hyrule and allows the player to explore every nook and cranny it has to offer. Exploring Hyrule to your heart's content, building up Link and arming yourself along the way. Doing whatever you think is necessary to take on Ganon. Because you don't have to do most of the quests that advance the story if you don't want to. You're able to try and take Ganon on right away because that's the main goal of the game, allowing you to make your journey as short or as long as you want to. So it begs the question, if Breath of the Wild is so great, how can they improve upon it? Well, Nintendo answers that question with
one of the greatest action-adventure games of all time, of this year. Yes, it's Genshin Impact 2. Tears of the Kingdom is the sequel to Breath of the Wild, and it plays so well it borders on invalidating the first entry.
Tears of the Kingdom picks up a few years after Breath of the Wild, with the rebuilding of Hyrule seemingly going smooth. Of course, this is turned on its head right from the beginning as Link has the stats knocked out of him and must traverse through the land once more in order to stop Ganondorf. The story immediately hooks you in with an immensely epic first sequence, but it doesn't stop there. You'll catch up with some characters from the previous adventure, with most of them having adjusted to this newfound peace-turned-disaster with gloom threatening to engulf the entire land. This game allows you to go from beat to beat without missing one, and should you want to veer off the beaten path, you'll have every chance to do so. As expected for Zelda, the power of bonds in each individual overcoming struggle are a huge part of the story, but you'll even see Link go through similar development even though he remains the silent protagonist.
The story is simple enough that you can pick it up without needing to go through the initial chapter, and the improvements made upon the already amazing blueprint laid down in Breath of the Wild will blow everybody's mind. Of course, a playthrough of the first game will help you to fully appreciate these improvements. Not only is the familiar map you know and love returning with a vengeance fueled by 5-year-old nostalgia, it also has a wealth of updates, not fueled by microtransactions. The surface of Hyrule is the same, but the locations are different. Now you have a castle floating in the sky, and various changes and progressions to the places you've seen before. You also have the addition of caves scattered across the surface. Alongside these changes are two brand new locales, the first being the depths. The game seems to take a feather from the Souls games here, because this place is oppressive, dark and scary. It inverts your hopeful desire to explore the map into morbid curiosity, and the light routes serve as a perfect goal point. You're not getting them for fun per se, you're getting them to make this environment a little more hospitable. But it's not all doom and gloom, there are some fun things to find here, they're just well hidden. The second feather takes us out of the chasm of dank and into the heavens. Being inspired from Skyward Sword, the Sky Islands are a wondrous spectacle. Seemingly sparse on the map, each one is packed to the brim with zonai, monsters and shrines. It really is a perfect shake-up to start your adventure here, where you can really take in the scope of the whole wide world. The game really shines when certain quests take you on a wild ride through all three areas, each a showcase of ingenuity in their own unique ways.
Tears of the Kingdom addresses every single one of the shortcomings of Breath of the Wild, and manages to surpass even our wildest expectations. The once barren landscape, oddball dungeons, and minimal story of Breath of the Wild are rectified in a glorious manner. The world is teeming with life, both hostile and civil. Every single square meter of Hyrule has something. It truly feels like a very open and complete world when pit against its already groundbreaking previous iteration. The music finally gets a chance to be bombastic and breathes a new life into Hyrule, setting a tone that transcends series past and the future. The battle you wage won't have you being alone. Truly one of the greatest secrets is your team and companions. Having them be your physical allies and abilities is a genius way to make you feel like a Hylian soldier of fortune against Ganon and his horde. And speaking of Ganon, he is wonderfully written and for once puts up a fight worthy of his namesake. It's truly a spectacle and an endgame worth every heart container you unlock. Tears of the Kingdom is an experience that's unique and wholly different from one person to the next, be it the combat, the intuitive build mechanics of Ultra Hand, or just the wanderlust adventuring. Every person creates their own story. It's truly the most fun, fascinating, and joyous gaming experiences we've had. Tears of the Kingdom becomes the greatest Zelda game, perhaps of all time, and definitively our game of 2023.
Phew. One step at a time. What exactly happened?